Greetings. This is Group Ethics1 Group 10's a recorded video presentation on 20th reading, Peter Singer's Practical Ethics, Chapter 5, Taking Life, Animals. And can a non-human animal be a person? So we have seen that there are reasons for holding that the killing of a person is more seriously wrong, than the killing of a being who is not a person, let's say a pig. So this is true whether we accept preference utilitarianism or Tully's argument about the right to life or the principle of respect for autonomy. Even a hedonistic utilitarian would say that there may be indirect reasons why it is worse to kill a person. So in discussing the wrongness of killing non-human animals, we believe that it is important to ask whether any of them can be considered as persons. So it sounds odd to call an animal a person, but this may be no more than a symptom of our habit of keeping our own species sharply separated from others. In any case, we can avoid the linguistic oddness by rephrasing the question in accordance with our definition of a person. What we are really asking is whether any non-human animals are rational and self-conscious beings, aware of themselves as distinct entities with a past and a future. Can you consider puppies, persons? Can you consider your own pets? Who are parts of your family, Can you consider them persons? So gorillas, bonobos, and orangutans have also been able to learn sign language, diba? So although the extent of their abilities is controversial, because for more than 30 years, Francine Patterson has been signing and speaking English with Coco, a lowland gorilla. She claims that Coco now has a working vocabulary of more than 500 signs and understands an even larger number of spoken English words. In front of a mirror, Coco will also make faces or examine her own teeth. Also, Chantek, an orangutan, has been taught sign language by Lynn Miles. When shown a photograph of a gorilla pointing to her nose, Chantek was able to imitate the gorilla by pointing to his own nose. Apes also use signs to refer to past or future events, thus showing a sense of time. There was also a chimpanzee, they called Washoe, who learned to understand about 350 different signs and was able to use about 250 of them correctly. She put signs together to form simple phrases and sentences, and in doing so, she also provided strong evidence of a sense of self. Now, suppose that on the basis of such evidence, we accept that the signing apes are self-conscious. Are they exceptional among all the non-human animals in this respect precisely because they can use language? Or is it merely that language enables these animals to demonstrate to us a characteristic that they and other animals have possessed all along? Diba? So some philosophers have argued that thinking requires language. One cannot think without formulating one's thought in words. The Oxford philosopher Stuart Hampshire, for example, has written that the difference here between a human being and an animal lies in the possibility of the human being expressing his intention and putting into words his intention to do so and so for his own benefit or for the benefit of others. The difference not merely that an animal in fact has no means of communicating or of recording for itself its intention, with the effect that no one can ever know what the intention was. So even if the animal could communicate, how could we really prove the animal's intention through their actions if we cannot communicate between humans and animals, even if they have their own means of communication? It is a strong difference, which is more correctly expressed as the senselessness of attributing intentions to an animal, which is not the means to reflect upon or to announce itself or to others its own future behavior. So it's this more proposes the lack of a level communication between species. Now we cannot understand their own means of communication, so how can we infer that they are providing a sense of self? Diba? So some scientists have argued that mental time travel, the ability to imagine a future event, is unique to humans, while animals such as dogs can anticipate certain events like going for a walk based on present motivations. Now, the distinctive human ability is believed to involve anticipating the future beyond current motivations. The example given is humans planning to shop for food to ensure dinner availability even when not hungry at the moment. Diba? Mag-meal prep tayo. So because we are anticipating in the future that we will require food when we are hungry later on. So the question is raised about whether animals, despite exhibiting behaviors like hiding food for the future, do so with conscious forethought or if it is purely instinctive behavior. So a more rigorous demonstration of an animal's ability to anticipate its own future desires comes, no, remarkably from not from apes or primates, but with birds, the scrub jays. No? The birds, like humans, store food for later consumption and show a preference for different types of food after becoming satiated. In the experiment, jays were given pine nuts and kibble alternately and allowed to store one of them. When they were later given pine nuts again, they preferred to store kibble, indicating an awareness of their future desire for a different food type. This suggests that scrub jays not only anticipate future events, but also have desires based on the awareness that their future preferences will differ from their current ones. So, killing non-human persons, diba? Some non-human animals qualify as persons based on their demonstrated cognitive abilities. And this conclusion is significant in the context of this under the discussions on the sanctity of human life. The author, Peter Singer, suggested that if certain moral features apply to human persons, they should also apply to non-human persons, rejecting the idea that killing a member of one species is always more significant than killing a member of another species. So with this statement, Peter Singer is trying to erase the line separating humans and animals, and would propose that all arguments applied onto human persons should also be applied to non-human persons to demonstrate that some animals can be persons. Peter Singer explored the idea that killing a chimpanzee may be considered worse than killing a human being with a profound intellectual disability who is not and cannot be a person. So a learned chimpanzee like Washoe or an orangutan like Chantek, who are learned individuals who have demonstrated a sense of self, killing them would be a worse deed, worse crime than killing an intellectually disabled person. One where they have no means to advance themselves intellectually. They cannot prove their own sense of self because they are undeveloped. Ganun, di ba? So the author acknowledges the complexity of such comparisons, considering factors like parental attitudes. The passage emphasizes that the certain animals, particularly great apes, exhibit characteristics of non-human persons. So experiments commonly use the mirror test as an indicator of self-awareness, noting that great apes, elephants, dolphins, and magpies pass the test. Additionally, at least some birds also appear to be persons. So we should be cautious, about excluding chickens. Okay, we may think chickens are only farm animals, but they can also show some levels of intelligence. So Singer introduces fish also, interestingly, as another category of animals and challenges the assumption that they lack intelligence. So he highlights the diversity of fish species and their varying abilities, including social intelligence and memory. He mentions the debunking of the myth about fish having a 3-second memory, also briefly touches on the veined octopus. Where let's note the octopus is not a fish. An octopus is an invertebrate. So suggesting that this behavior may indicate awareness of future needs and planning. Overall, Singer argues for the recognition of certain non-human animals as persons based on their cognitive capacities, challenging traditional distinctions between species and ethical considerations. Kasi when we try to think about experiments for considering non-human animals, we only usually think about land animals, diba? Kasi it's the forefront. So we think great apes, we think our pets, our cats and dogs, birds. Pero as Singer argued, fish have also been proven to have intelligence. And fish, the word fish, the animal fish, covers so many different species. There are sharks. There are not fish, pero whales. Whales are mammals. Pero whales live in the water. They communicate. They have communities. They care for their young. There are also schools of fish that use strategies to stay together and to stay alive, diba, against predators. Invertebrates like octopi, or squid, jellyfish can have been proven to have some sort of level of intelligence. No, there are also the mollusks, the shellfish, which employ various tactics for survival and problem solving. Can they also be considered non-human persons? So it is really indeed difficult to establish now when another being has a sense of its own self or of the past and the future. Determining whether another being possesses self-awareness, under an understanding of the past and future, or personhood is very challenging. It is if there is uncertainty about whether a being is a person, and if it is wrong to kill a person when avoidable, the best course of action is to give the being the benefit of the doubt. You can never, if or say you were going to kill a being because of their lack of person, diba? You have to allow them the chance to prove that before you indiscriminately killing them. No? So there's the analogy of deer hunting, no? Used to emphasize the principle. If unsure whether a moving figure is a deer or a hunter, it is advised not to shoot. They suggest that within an ethical framework, killing non-human animals is often questionable and requires strong justification, even though there may be situations where it's deemed justifiable for overriding reasons. So this is a very common argument used by many animal rights groups, no? So it requires an incredibly strong justifiable reason to kill a non-human person. And it also requires an equally strong and justifiable reason to show that that animal is a non-human person. So it's a back and forth confusing debate. So rather than viewing the wrongness of killing, no, as a binary true or false distinction based on whether the being killed is or is not a person, it should be seen as a matter of degree. The degree of wrongness should consider factors such as whether the being killed was fully a person, a near person, or had no self-awareness at all. Additionally, the extent to which the being had future-directed desires and how central those desires were to its life should be taken into account. While the criminal law may establish clear boundaries for practical reasons, Singer argues that morally there is a continuum that better captures the complexity of these considerations. So arguments against killing based on the capacity to see oneself as an individual existing over time apply to some non-human animals. But presumably, no, let's think that there are others who, though conscious, are not persons. Let's assume that there are some animals about whom we can be confident that they are not persons or even near persons. The rightness of or wrongness of killing these animals then seems to rest on utilitarian considerations, for they are not autonomous and, at least if Tully's analysis of rights is correct, do not qualify for our rights to life. So Singer discusses the utilitarian approach to killing, emphasizing that various indirect reasons are considered in utilitarian calculations. Many methods of killing animals involve prolonged suffering, and the impact of a death on the animal's social group, mate, or offspring is also taken into account. Because as a person, we're affected by the deaths of the people around us. And that's a trait or a factor considered when judging whether a non-human is a person. So for example, Singer mentions the distress caused by separating cows from their mothers on dairy farms. He clarifies that apart from the pain and distress caused, they are not reasons for opposing killing in itself. The utilitarian perspective focuses on the overall consequences and well-being resulting from the act of killing. Deciding on the correct utilitarian verdict on killing that is painless and causes no loss to others is complicated. It's very difficult, no, because it depends both on how we choose between the two versions of utilitarianism outlined in the previous slides. That is the total or the prior existence view. So also on whether we are hedonistic or preference utilitarians. I will begin by supposing that we are hedonistic utilitarians, because this makes the discussion of the differences between the total and the prior existence views more straightforward. It'll be easier to explain and to understand, and only subsequently will we consider that what impact a switch to preference utilitarian makes. So Singer discusses the replaceability argument in the context of meat consumption. It begins by noting that even if the argument holds for animals with pleasant lives, it does not justify consuming animals from modern factory farms where their living conditions are more burdensome than beneficial. He also emphasizes this based on the condemnation of factory farming by Poland and Fernley Whittingstall. He questions the idea that creating happy lives is good, diba? And suggests that if this is the case, it might be better for the planet to have as many happy beings as possible. This leads to a challenging implication for defenders of meat eating, as the argument could suggest eliminating most humans to make room for a larger number of smaller, happy animals. He extends the replaceability argument to humans at a similar mental level. The hypothetical scenario involves creating genetically modified clones with infantile mental abilities to serve as organ donors for their genetically identical counterparts. He illustrates that how this argument, if applied consistently, could lead to morally problematic scenarios, such as organ banking using clones, raising questions about ethical implications, and the rejection of speciesism. So the replaceability argument is dictates that if, let's say, let's give an example, let's think pigs. So the replaceability argument states that if the pleasures of the pig's lives, if you were to kill that pig, you would lose the possibility of the pig's pleasures. We're thinking in the idea of hedonistic utilitarianism. So you kill that pig, the pig loses its pleasures in life. Pero killing that pig also provides the opportunity for the farm to acquire more pigs. So there is the pleasure in the act of acquiring more pigs, because more pigs means more money. Diba? So that's the pleasure. So replaceability argument basically says that if the pleasure of losing the pig's life, if the loss of the pig's pleasures can be balanced, should be balanced. That's the point of the argument. The loss of the pig's pleasure should be balanced by a different pleasure. In this case, it's the pleasure of acquiring more pigs. So the killing is justified in terms of the replaceability argument. So overall, Peter Singer critically examines the replaceability argument in the context of meat eating and suggests potential ethical dilemmas and inconsistencies when extending the argument to other scenarios involving humans. He then presents a thought experiment by Derek Parfit to explore the ethical implications of a different scenario. So it's a reproductive choices and decision-making related to climate change. So in this first scenario, two women face different circumstances affecting their future child's well-being. The first woman can prevent a potential defect in her child through a simple pill, medicine lang, while the second woman must delay pregnancy or conception to avoid the same defect. It discusses the moral consequences of their choice, questioning whether their wrongdoings are of equal magnitude. So to explain further, the first woman, she only needs to take a simple pill. The other, she must delay pregnancy. Pero what happens when the woman does not take the pill? So her child ends up being deformed, and the woman gets pregnant before her actual schedule. They both have defective children, deformed children. Which woman committed greater sin, diba? Okay, one woman knows she can prevent the deformity by just taking a pill. The other woman could prevent herself from getting pregnant. It's a moral dilemma, and it's exploring the implications of prioritizing the interests of possible beings who would come into existence under different circumstances. Kasi the second woman could think nga, pwede naman akong di mabuntis, di ba? I could do this and that. I can get pregnant. I might not get pregnant. So who knows, what my child will become. For the other woman, you can prevent it. So if they both have deformed children, are both their crimes of equal magnitude, or is one woman more sinful than the other, di ba? To further illustrate the ethical complexities, Peter Singer introduces a scenario akin to the global decision on climate change. It contrasts business as usual, where current generations continue. We keep going, we keep exploiting the cheapest energy for immediate benefits, or against the idea of sustainability, which involves sacrificing some of our current comforts for the long-term well-being of future generations. So to go into it raises questions about selfishness, intergenerational ethics, and trade-offs between present and future well-being. It prompts readers to consider the moral dimensions of reproductive choices and societal decisions with long-term consequences. We explore the ethical implications of choosing between business as usual and sustainability regarding climate change policies. No, it's whether the present generation has done something wrong, and if so, who is wrong by the decision. It argues against the idea that the wrong is solely against future generations who might have better lives under the sustainability option. Say, when you think about it, if we keep going business as usual, only the current generation benefits. The present and living generation, we exploit resources to gain energy, to keep ourselves comfortable. However, at the cost of our own planet and our own world, diba? And of the future generations that will come after us. So basically, business as usual dooms the future generation. Sustainability, on the other hand, sacrifices the current generation's comforts. So basically, we live at a bare minimum of survival or livability in order to secure a better place for future generations. So it's a ethical dilemma on whether do we want to be comfortable now for ourselves, or do we want to provide a certain livable future for our children, our children's children. No? So choosing between these two suggests any choice will have widespread effects, influencing who meets whom, who has children with whom, and ultimately altering the identities of individuals born in later centuries. So it's a butterfly effect, essentially, no, from these choices. It would help grabe ang change in the future if we choose any of these. So based on the ethical considerations related to the choice between business as usual and sustainability in the context of climate change policies, Peter Singer introduces the prior existence view. This is discussed in other chapters before chapter 5. Pero prior existence view, it suggests doing what is best for those who already exist or will exist anyway, favoring the continuation of business as usual. However, Singer argues that focusing only on existing or inevitable future lives neglects a crucial aspect of the ethical decision-making process. He contends that comparing the lives of those who will exist with the lives of those who might have existed if a different choice had been made is essential. So he's basically challenging the dilemma himself. He raises the question of at what stage in development from potential existence to actual existence does the principle of replaceability cease to apply. So he explores the difference between preferential utilitarianism and hedonistic utilitarianism in this context. Preferential utilitarians distinguish between self-aware individuals with the future-directed preferences and those without, suggesting that the former should be treated differently. However, he also introduces the idea that beings without the capacity to conceive of themselves as living entities with a future might be considered impersonal. Singer proposes that the ability to perceive oneself as existing over time and aspire to a longer life may be the characteristic that distinguishes beings who are not replaceable. So let's break this down, no? So where does the line exist between replaceable and non-replaceable beings? At what stage in the development pala of from potential existence to actual existence? So from plans to have a baby to actual birth, where does the replaceability argument for us humans or for non-human persons, where does the replaceability cease to exist? Because when you think about as he says here, no, as a baby, we have potential, pero that potential is not certain, and therefore the loss of a baby let's say in a context a mother who wants an abortion, diba? The baby has potential, pero it's not actual potential kasi it's not realized pa. It's future potential. So the loss of the baby's life to preserve the mother's potential, but diba? It fits within the replaceability argument. Pero Singer introduces the idea that people or beings, persons who do not have the capacity to conceive of themselves, to continue their lineage, to continue their line as living entities towards the future, can be considered impersonal. Kasi you're living for one person lang. So he proposes that the ability to perceive oneself as existing over time and aspiring to have a longer life, this can be interpreted in a way, no, existing over time can be interpreted as having children, no, continuing your lineage, your bloodline. He proposes that characteristic is what distinguishes beings, no, is what makes them it's what makes them irreplaceable outside the replaceability argument. So this conclusion is in harmony with Tooley's views about what it takes to have a rightful life. For a preference utilitarian concerned with the satisfaction of preferences rather than experiences of suffering or happiness, there is a similar fit with the distinction already drawn between happiness. There is a similar fit with the distinction already drawn, between killing those who are rational and self-conscious and killing those who are not. Rational self-conscious beings are individuals living lives of their own and cannot in any sense be regarded merely as receptacles for containing a certain quantity of happiness. Beings that are not conscious, beings that are conscious but are not self-conscious, on the other hand, more nearly approximate the image of receptacles for experience of pleasure and or pain, because their preferences will be of a more immediate sort given the evidence we have just reviewed. It's not easy to say with confidence which animals might be conscious but not self-conscious. But for a merely conscious being, death is the cessation of experiences in much the same way that birth is the beginning of an experience. Kasi being conscious lang, but not self-aware. Death is basically as simple as closing your eyes, the same as the way you open them, literally. Kasi you're not self-conscious. You do not possess aspirations or expectations of the future. You simply opened your eyes, and death is just closing them. So death cannot be contrary to an interest in continued life any more than birth would be in accordance with an interest in commencing life. So to this extent, with merely conscious beings, birth and death cancel each other out. Whereas with self-aware beings, the fact that one may desire to continue living means that death inflicts a loss for which the birth of another is insufficient compensation. So preference utilitarianism is, after all, a form of maximizing utilitarianism that requires that the overall satisfaction of different persons' preferences be maximized, just as classical utilitarianism requires overall experienced happiness to be maximized. If preferences, even the desire to live, may be outweighed by the preference of others, why can't they be outweighed by new preferences created to take their place? It discusses preference utilitarianism and its approach to evaluating the creation and satisfaction of preferences. While preference utilitarianism aims to maximize the satisfaction of preferences, Singer emphasizes that thwarting existing preferences should not be outweighed by the creation of new preferences, whether in existing beings or those brought into existence. So the evaluation of the package deal involving the creation and satisfaction of preferences is portrayed as a distinct and complex question. So he illustrates this by highlighting the difference in our responses when considering existing unsatisfied preferences versus contemplating the creations of new preferences. He argues that the satisfaction of an existing preference is inherently good as it aligns with an individual's desires. However, the creation and satisfaction of a new preference are not inherently good or bad. Kasi the evaluation depends on the nature of the preference and whether the overall experience aligns with other long-standing preferences. For example, if the satisfaction of a new preference leads to the highly pleasurable experience, it may be viewed positively. But if the creation of a preference resembles privation, it may not be desired, even if it can be satisfied. So it concludes by suggesting that the creation and satisfaction of a preference lack intrinsic value. Their desirability depends on the overall experience and its alignment with existing preferences. If the experience does not contribute positively to the individual's long-standing preferences, there is no inherent value in creating a new desire solely for the purpose of satisfying it. So Singer introduces the climate change scenario, and it's a new scenario, and as a third option, oh, it's not a new scenario, sorry, where we go back to the climate change scenario involving the business as usual and the sustainability options. But this time he adds a new option called the party and go. So it literally translates to use up all the resources and then go find another planet. So it advocates for increased profligacy in energy usage compared to the business as usual scenario, but proposes that everyone should get sterilized to ensure that the current generation is the last on Earth. He explores the idea that if pessimists are correct in their belief that bringing someone into existence inevitably results in a negative moral balance, then opting for sterilization and not creating future generations might be the ethically right choice. So the pessimist idea is that if bringing a child into this world will only create a negative moral balance. Because once the child is there, you will start thinking I have used up the resources and now my child will live in an apocalyptic scenario. So it creates negative ethical dilemma. So to avoid that, everyone should get sterilized out. No more new generation. We just literally we party. We use up the resources on Earth to provide a more pleasurable experience for our current generation. Excuse me. And then we go off, we die off, or we find like a different place to continue our existence. This option raises the question of whether bringing new individuals into existence is justified if it is likely to lead to a negative moral impact. He suggests that according to pessimistic views, creating future generations might be ethically problematic, and the party and go option could be considered the right course of action. The ethical evaluation is based on the belief that not creating future generations would avoid a negative moral balance, as opposed to bringing individuals into existence. Some may view this option as incredibly selfish, more selfish than business as usual. Instead of actually living for the future, we live for the current us, only us, no more. Diba? No more new children, no more new generation, just us. So he explores the comparison between a different scenario now. It's between two hypothetical universes: the non-sentient universe where there is no sentient life, and the peopled universe where several billion self-aware beings lead rich, fulfilling lives. He raises the question of whether it is better for the peopled universe to exist, considering the intrinsic value of consciousness, but the discussion delves into different ethical perspectives, such as universalizing preferences and hedonistic utilitarianism. Singer also critiques the idea of universalizing preferences as insufficient when considering beings who might not exist at all. The distinction is made between satisfying existing preferences and bringing preferences into existence. He introduces Henry Sidgwick's hedonistic utilitarian perspective, suggesting that consciousness, particularly pleasure, is intrinsically good. He then goes on to acknowledge a potential objection from hedonistic utilitarianism regarding the preference for any universe with a surplus of pleasure over pain, including a hypothetical happy sheep universe. Personally, I would think we're in a sheep universe, happy or not. Or ultimately, he expresses a personal preference for both the peopled universe and the happy sheep universe over the non-sentient universe. So the existence of sentient life trumps above all, in the terms of utilitarianism. The preference is grounded in the belief that a universe without terrible suffering and where life is genuinely good for everyone would be so much better than a universe without sentient life at all. He emphasizes that while they argue that merely conscious beings are replaceable, it doesn't imply that their interests are irrelevant. The interests of conscious being, as discussed in the third chapter of the book, are considered significant. Sentience is acknowledged as the basis for equal consideration of interests, wherein beings have an interest in satisfying desires and experiencing pleasure while minimizing pain. However, having sentience does not automatically imply a personal interest in the continuation of life. So if the arguments in this chapter are correct now, there is no single answer to the question, is it normally wrong to kill an animal? The term animal, even in the restricted sense of non-human animal, covers too diverse a range of lives for one principle to apply to all of them. Some non-human animals who exhibit self-awareness and a conception of themselves as distinct beings with a past and future present a direct reason against killing them. The strength of this reason varies based on the degree of the animal's capacity to have future-directed desires. As our understanding of the intellectual capacities of non-human animals has expanded, the range of species to which this reason applies has increased. Singer suggests giving the benefit of the doubt to various species, including monkeys, dogs, cats, pigs, seals, bear, cattle, sheep, birds, and fish. For animals that lack self-awareness, the primary reason against killing them points to the loss of a pleasant or enjoyable life. When an animal's life would have been pleasant and the killing results in its replacement by another animal living an equally pleasant life, some argue that no wrong is done. This view suggests that merely conscious animals are interchangeable with each other. In certain circumstances, such as when animals lead pleasant lives, such as when animals lead pleasant lives are killed painlessly, and their deaths don't cause suffering to others, the killing of animals without self-awareness might not be considered wrong. Kasi you do no harm. You haven't hurt anyone because you killed it painlessly, and their deaths don't affect their other members of their same species. Killing for animals for food is not always wrong, even in the case of animals with some self-awareness. So you're comparing hunting to factory farming. Singer suggests that in situations where there are no predators to control the deer population, hunting may be more defensible. The argument is that a quick death from a well-aimed bullet is preferable to slow starvation, which may occur due to overpopulation. He acknowledges that fertility control would be a better solution than hunting, assuming it is humane, but notes the lack of research in this area. Singer's text addresses the responsibility also of vegans for killing, pointing out arguments that even vegan practices can unintentionally harm animals, so indirect harm. For example, plowing fields for crop cultivation may crush field mice, and moles can be killed when their burrows are destroyed. He references Stephen Davis's claim that the number of animals killed by growing crops is greater than the number killed by rearing beef cattle on pasture. However, he contends that Davis's argument overlooks the fact that the same area of land used for crops can feed about 10 times as many people as the land used for grass-fed beef. When considering this difference, the argument suggests that vegans may be responsible for killing only about a fifth as many animals as those who consume grass-fed beef. Now, while the vegan diet would based on this would undoubtedly kill less, it is still killing. So this undermines the fact that veganism is to promote a diet that allows promote a diet that prevents killing of animals. So in conclusion, none of this discussion was ever intended to suggest that people who need to kill animals in order to survive, so these are people in poverty who are struggling to get enough to feed themselves and their families, or these people who are traditionally hunters or gatherers in their existence, should not do so. If cows, pigs, chickens, and the other animals we usually eat are self-aware, they are still not self-aware to anything like the extent that humans normally are. Singer agrees with Varner and Scruton that the more one thinks of one's life as a story that has chapters still to be written, and the more one hopes for achievements yet to come, the more one has to lose by being killed. For this reason, when there is an irreconcilable conflict between the basic survival needs of animals and normal humans, it is not speciesist to provide priority to the lives of those with a biographical sense of their life and a stronger orientation towards their own future. And that is all. Thank you.